Alright, which of these four mid-range phones is the best value for money? Now, at this price point, we'll most likely be making sacrifices here and there, like having a great camera but a mediocre processor, a good-looking design and fantastic build quality, but that might not just be the one for those who are chasing after the specs. Is it possible to have it all? If on Ray here. Right, in this video will be mainly 1. To figure out which one's actually the best value for money, and 2. Which one's doing the best in what. So here we have the Xiaomi 17T, nothing from 4A Pro. Now we're having the non-Pro version for both the Xiaomi and the Honor 600 here per se. Just to make sure all four of them will be the proper mid-rangers, I do have the 17T Pro from Xiaomi and the Honor 600 Pro as well. For that, I'll try to put everything together and release it in another separate video. Well, to keep the long story short, if you're into long-range zoom, the Nothing Phone 4A Pro and the Xiaomi 17T both offers a proper periscope telephoto camera. Well, we're actually looking at a triple camera setup here on the Galaxy A57, but we'll definitely be digging deeper into it in a moment. And Honor's actually given a 200 megapixels camera for their mid-range Honor 600. Now, apart from the camera, all four of them based on a 4nm processor, so the Xiaomi here is possibly delivering 1 tier higher processing power. And just one more thing, all four of them here packs 12GB of RAM and 256GB of storage, and we're looking at the global version here. Now, the size of the devices can actually be another major deciding factor, as both Honor and Xiaomi decided to give their mid-range phone a relatively smaller display. Like, you'll be getting a 6.59-inch display here on the Xiaomi 17T and a 6.57-inch display here on the Honor. Now, as you can see here, the Honor's having a really thin bezel around all the four sides. Don't get me wrong, the Xiaomi's got thin bezel around the four sides as well, flagship tier thin. So if we're comparing them side by side, we can clearly tell Honor's doing a remarkably great job this year. Now, on the other end of the story, you've got a 6.7-inch display here on the Galaxy A57 and an even larger 6.83-inch display here on the Nothing. If you're searching for a mid-range phone that has got a larger display, the Galaxy and the Nothing could be your choice here. Or if it doesn't matter that much to you, the build quality here. Samsung's absolutely making their mid-range phone looks and feels like a flagship this year. The sandwich of glass and metal is making a return. At some point I was actually surprised by how thin and light the A57 feels in hand. It's only 6.9mm thin, making it the thinnest phone among the four. And it weighs only 179 grams, is featuring Gorilla Glass Victus Plus on both the front and the back as well. IP68 water and dust resistance also here. There might be one downside when it comes to the design here though. Now, if you look close enough at the bezels, without a doubt the A57's got thinner bezels compared to its predecessor and is now flagship tier thin. Though we're still sort of getting a chin here. The bottom bezel here is still ever so slightly thicker than the other three sides. If I'm not wrong, Samsung could actually be the only one left who are still doing this at this price point. The build quality and the choice of material, however, could actually be the best across the board here. Now, the Nothing is the only one here that has got an aluminium unibody design. The one-of-a-kind glyph window design and the use of metal material definitely gave the phone the kind of unique and premium look and feel. It's worth noticing, however, it's IP65 rated when it comes to dust and water resistance. It's just not the once and for all IP68 rating, if that matters to you. Now, the Honor, we're actually getting the same 6.57-inch display no matter if you're choosing the Pro or the non-Pro version here. And you'll be getting an aluminium frame even on the non-Pro version here. There's one thing that you might want to keep in mind, however. The back of the regular Honor 600 is actually made out of an ultra-durable composite fiber back, which is not glass. And that applies to both the Honor and the Xiaomi when it comes to the non-Pro version. Here on the Xiaomi 70T, we'll be dealing with a plastic frame and a fiber back, which some may consider that as another form of plastic. Both the Xiaomi and the Honor actually feels premium in hand, however. And last but certainly not least, all of them here's got dual SIM and eSIM support. Alright, just before we move on to the cameras, all four of them here's got quite different color interpretation when it comes to HDR videos playback. Right now we're looking at an HDR video on YouTube. We've got brighter and more saturated colors on the Galaxy, perceived to be natural and accurate colors here on the Nothing, slightly boosted color saturation and contrast here on the Honor, and a brighter image and elevated shadows here on the Xiaomi. I truly hope you guys could tell the difference through my camera and your display. Right, when it comes to Netflix videos playback, each one of them steadily reaching the widefine L1 level. On the Nothing though, it says it's got no HDR capabilities. Though I've tried throwing an HDR movie at it, it plays HDR10 plus content with no issue. Just like the Honor and the Galaxy, now the Xiaomi is the only one which has got Dolby Vision support. The displays on the mid-rangers are getting actually good this year, and now we'll also be comparing the speaker quality as well, and each of them's got a pair of dual speakers. Alright, based on my personal experience, the Galaxy and the Nothing's got slightly better mid and low frequencies. They sounded fuller and rounder in general. Now, the Honor 600 Pro and the Xiaomi 17T Pros actually got a speaker upgrade. The regular version here is absolutely not their best. Alright, now the biggest moment of this video, the cameras. It's actually interesting to see everyone other than the Honor 600 has got a triple camera setup, leaving it the only one which has got a dual camera setup, though the main camera's actually got 200 megapixels, which naturally allows it to zoom up to 4 times without losing any details. With all the AI algorithms, they've got it here on the mid-ranger as well. It's got pretty good zoom capabilities. And the third camera here on the Galaxy A57, that's a super macro lens. I wouldn't say it's completely useless, though I might be using it a few times a year. They're certainly preserving it for the S series. Here it takes close-up shots that the object is around 3 to 5 centimeters away. What surprised me, however, would be the main camera is actually got a decent 1/1.56-inch sensor. Same here on the Xiaomi 17T and the Nothing Phone 4a Pro. While on the Nothing here we've got an 80mm telephoto camera, and that is based on a 1/2.75-inch sensor. Similar sensor size here on the telephoto camera of the Xiaomi 17T, though Xiaomi is given it the exact same 115mm 5x telephoto camera periscope lens which we've found on the Pro variant. Alright, we're not here only reading out the specs and numbers for sure. How do they actually compare in the real world? First and foremost, when it comes to colors and HDR effect, Xiaomi and Leica has given the T series the Leica Authentic and Leica Vibrant profiles here as well. Now, what would be the difference between these two profiles on this particular device? In this particular scene, we've got brighter shadows and more saturated colors when we're using the Leica Vibrant mode. On the contrary, we've got some vignetting effect, reduced color saturation and increased contrast when we're using the Leica Authentic mode. When it comes to color filters, however, for sure Honor will be having their own selection of filters, including film simulation in portrait mode. All different kinds of photographic styles here on the Nothing 4a Pro, while here the Galaxy A57, Samsung's given their mid-range phone the personalized filter feature as well this year. Alright, time to get the phones and the cameras out in the field. Under broad daylight, the first thing you might have noticed would be the increased color saturation here on the Honor 600. Now, Samsung's definitely got the tendency to increase color saturation for most cases on their mid-range phone. They've certainly dialed it back on their premium ultra flagships, though apparently they've decided not to do that here on the A series yet. So in general, under broad daylight, no matter which lens you're using, the Galaxy and the Honor will most likely be delivering sharper colors and more vivid photos in general. Nothing's actually following a really similar path here as well. Depending on the scene, color saturation and HDR are also on the more aggressive side. At last, the Xiaomi might actually be the one which is delivering more natural and cinematic looking colors and contrast. Now here, it might come down to personal preference. In my opinion, the photos shot on the Xiaomi do look slightly less digitally processed. If you've checked out the photos shot on the 17 Ultra though, that would be on another level. The 17T here is not bad, actually really great for its price, even when it comes to low light and night scenes. And as you can see here, noise control is actually relatively great even on the ultra-wide camera and when it comes to low light scenes, on all 4 of them. Right, all photos we were looking at were shot on the ultra-wide camera in the past minute or so. Moving on to the main and the telephoto camera. To start off with, we have a scene with plenty of bright red flowers. It can be a really great test for color reproduction. When it comes to color reproduction and color accuracy, the crown goes to the Xiaomi 17T for this particular one. Across the main and the telephoto camera, the Xiaomi 17T's got the red color on point. It's not oversaturated and we can still see different shades of red. The Galaxy is doing a decent job here as well with increased color saturation. Now it's lacking a proper telephoto camera, so at 10x, the level of details and texture. Now let's just not push it too far, 10x is actually its maximum zoom range. Now the Honor is actually delivering a surprising amount of details considering it's actually doing digital crop from the main camera. And here we've got another challenging scene. Great news for everybody. All the Galaxy, the Honor, the Nothing and the Xiaomis successfully retrieved every fine details in the shadows on the trees while preserving the colors and contrast on the highlights. Now the Nothing's actually got more saturated colors for this particular one. Time for low light performance and zoom. Technically speaking, the Honor's got the largest sensor among the bunch. It's got a 1/1.4 inch sensor compared to the 1/1.56 inch standard across the Galaxy, the Nothing and the Xiaomi. Now the Xiaomi 17T Pro's got an even larger 1/1.31 inch sensor for the main camera, so we're only considering what we've got here. I have to say, the ability to retrieve all the details and textures from the highlights to deliver bright enough shadows and overall luminance of the photos. When it comes to the main camera, at 2x in this particular one we are getting slightly more noise on the Galaxy. It's totally manageable, while we're getting a cleaner and more contrasty photo across the Honor, the Nothing and the Xiaomi. Moving on to zoom, naturally we'll be expecting more from the Xiaomi and the Nothing, as we've got a dedicated periscope telephoto camera there. What's worth noticing, however, would be the AI zoom here on the Honor. Combined with a 200 megapixels sensor on the main camera, in certain situations it actually delivers pretty decent zoom quality. At 4x here on the Honor and the Galaxy, 3.5x here on the Nothing and 5x on the Xiaomi 17T, we're actually getting really similar level of details and sharpness on the Honor compared to that on the Nothing and the Xiaomi, which both have got a dedicated periscope telephoto camera. And at 10x, just look at the silhouette of the mountains. We've got a digital noise-free photo out of the Honor. I wouldn't claim the level of details to be exactly identical to that on the Nothing and the Xiaomi, but the Honor's still giving a sharper and cleaner photo compared to the Galaxy in general. Back to 5x on the Xiaomi, 4x on the Galaxy and the Honor, and 3.5x here on the Nothing. HDR and dynamic range are great on all of them, and as you can tell here, at 4x the Galaxy is actually delivering quite clean and sharp photos as well. Alright, this time around, pay attention to the bottom right hand corner. We'll be zooming all the way in to 20x in a moment to the pier. At 5x and 4x on the Honor and Galaxy, 3.5x on the Nothing. At 4x, the Honor's basically delivering identical level of details and sharpness to that on the Nothing and the Xiaomi, and all the way to 20x with a little bit of help of AI on the Honor. At 20x, the Honor's actually delivering comparable level of details and sharpness compared to even the Nothing and the Xiaomi, which have got both AI algorithms and a dedicated telephoto camera again. One more round of comparison under broad daylight, just to confirm whatever we've found is correct. First, I have to say, if you're really into long-range zoom, the Nothing Phone 4a Pro and the Xiaomi 17T, which have got a dedicated telephoto camera, would naturally be the best. The Honor 600, however, is delivering really compelling results considering it's actually using AI and the 200 megapixels main sensor. When it comes to low light and night scenes, however, the results can actually be quite different. At 80mm field of view on the Nothing and 115mm on the Xiaomi, 4x on the Nothing and the Galaxy. Apparently, the AI magic on the Honor is not working as great as what we've got under broad daylight, and now at 10x the gap would be even wider between the Galaxy, the Honor and the Nothing and Xiaomi. In my opinion, the Xiaomi is indeed having an edge here, considering both the Nothing and the Xiaomi are using a 1/2.75 inch sensor on their telephoto camera. Now, the 5x lens here on the Xiaomi truly shines compared to the 3.5x lens on the Nothing. Not a major deciding factor in my opinion though. Now, the Honor 600 Pro and the base model S26, they do have a dedicated telephoto camera. So if you're a fan of Honor and Galaxy phone, you might have to pay a little bit more, while Xiaomi is giving the same 5x telephoto lens even to the entry-level model of the T series, which is plausible. In the meantime, even at 20x, the Nothing's actually performing really great with the aid of AI. It's essentially delivering really similar zoom capabilities as what we've got on the Xiaomi. So that's the image quality from daytime all the way to low light. There's one more area which we definitely cannot skip, portrait mode. Just as usual, I'll be switching off any sort of beauty effect and retouching effect here. So what we're going to see will be the out-of-the-box default skin tone. It's worth noticing, however, the Xiaomi's got two different modes for portrait mode, Leica Portrait and Master Portrait, and I was using the Master Portrait mode here. Skin tone's brighter and HDR's more pronounced, some may consider it as more social media ready. While all four of them got perfect edge detection and background blur effect. And in terms of skin tones, both the Galaxy and the Nothing decided to give more natural skin tone with reduced contrast. Well, it's quite clear that Honor's and Xiaomi is doing something to elevate the skin tone. Now, in my opinion, the Honor's actually got the best skin tone and portrait effect here for this particular one. It's sharp, bright, and with decent amount of contrast. And right, the third lens here on the Galaxy A57, the super macro lens. Here we can take a photo of an object that is around 3 to 5 centimeters away from the phone. While we don't necessarily have a dedicated super macro lens here on the Honor 600. Just as usual, however, it's got a super macro mode as well, utilizing the ultra wide angle camera. It's got the job done, and you can actually zoom in to 1 and 2x to get better compression rate. Now the Nothing, unlike the flagship killer tier Nothing Phone 3, here on the Nothing Phone 4a Pro, we don't necessarily have a telephoto camera which doubles as a telemacro lens. What they've done, however, is quite interesting here. They're actually utilizing the main camera rather than the ultra-wide camera for close-up shots like these. You know, I do think it's quite a good idea, as the main camera is always going to give better image quality than the ultra-wide camera. And at last, if you're a big fan of super macro photography, the Xiaomi might have got you covered. The 5x telephoto camera here has got a nearest focus distance of around 30 centimeters. Not the craziest telemacro effect I've seen, but it's indeed giving smooth and nice background blur effect. The image quality is decent as well, texture and details sharp, together with the advantage in color reproduction. The Honor 600 is doing a great job as well, colors more saturated, but I would say color accuracy here is actually good. While the Nothing's got the red color more onto the pink side, and the Galaxy's got a slight bluish and reddish hue, turning the red color almost like into magenta. Moving on to performance output and the overall experience of the phone as a phone. Now, if you're planning to get a mid-range phone, is it possible to get through some heavy-duty stuffs and possibly gaming as well? The good news is all four of them here's got a chip that is based on the mature 4nm manufacturing process. The Galaxy's got their in-house Exynos 1680 chip. It's essentially based on the same Cortex 720 architecture for the big cores as the Snapdragon counterpart, but is clocked slightly higher. Now here on the Honor 600 and the Nothing Phone 4a Pro, we have the familiar Snapdragon 7 Gen 4. Xiaomi, however, is definitely pushing the limit when it comes to phones in this price range. The MediaTek Dimensity 8500 Ultra is also based on 4nm manufacturing process, though we're having more advanced Cortex A7 25 cores for all the 8 cores. What does it mean in the real world? Here we've got a quick Geekbench 6 benchmark. The 17T is delivering comparable results to the Galaxy S24 Ultra, which is a 2-year-old flagship. On the other hand, we're having more standard mid-range performance on the Nothing and the Honor. The Galaxy is having a slight advantage here, utilizing their in-house processor. Alright, the numbers here actually represented the difference in their real-world performance pretty accurately, as I've got a 30-minute long 4K video project here in LumaFusion. Right, mid-range phones in 2026 can actually handle heavy-duty 4K video editing pretty effortlessly here. Like the experience here scrolling across the timeline, that's almost as smooth as what I've experienced on any other flagship phones, so the time required to export that particular video could actually be quite different across the board. So just take a closer look here, the timeline is exactly 30 minutes long, and I've kept it the same across the board. It's a 2-layer 4K project, and just to keep things fair, we'll be exporting the video using the same bitrate and resolution. Right at the very beginning, we can already tell the Xiaomi 17T is leading the race here. Once again, we can easily tell Xiaomi is definitely pushing the boundary for mid-range phones in this price range. As we're fast-forwarding the video at 20x speed, we can clearly tell the Xiaomi 17T is like over 2 times faster than that on the Galaxy A57, and the Galaxy itself is marginally faster than that on the Honor, and the Nothing's definitely making its way to the finish line, taking some time though. I have to admit, however, I've never edited a video that's 30 minutes long on a phone. The only chance for me to edit a video on a tiny screen will most likely be an Instagram reel or a simple IG story. For that, I would say you can't go wrong with either of these. So the Xiaomi here has already crossed the finish line, took only about 11 minutes and 14 seconds. In the meantime, judging from the progress bar, the runner-up is most likely going to be the Galaxy A57. And he's right, at around 24 minutes and 3 seconds, we've got the 30-minute long 4K video exported, leaving the two with the Snapdragon 7 Gen 4 catching up. Now, as it's almost finishing exporting the video here on the Honor 600, an error occurred. Now, I've tried exporting the same timeline once again. The errors here once again, it seems like there's no way for me to export this particular video here on the Honor 600. And as the clock counting, the Nothing's fighting its way to the finish line, though I've actually waited for more than an hour. It seems like it's going to take forever. So it's basically a fact that the Xiaomi is delivering the best raw performance across the board, followed by the Galaxy A57, with the Xiaomi taking up less than half of the time the Galaxy required to export the exact same timeline. Right, that's indeed a rather extreme use case scenario that most of you out there might not be using your mid-range phone that particular way. For gaming, however, it's definitely worth checking out. Again, the best of the bunch would naturally be the Xiaomi 17T. Right, it's delivering buttery smooth gaming experience, even for games like Genshin Impact, and I had everything set to maximum. Now the Nothing. Indeed, technically speaking, we're having a one tier lower processor here. CPU and GPU performance not as outstanding as that on the Xiaomi. Though in 2026, the Snapdragon 7 Gen 4 is actually adequate for heavy-duty gaming. Just like on the Xiaomi, I had everything set to maximum here. And the Nothing Phone 4a Pro is running it like it's nothing. And now I might just be as suspicious as some of you out there when it comes to gaming on an Exynos chip. Great news for Samsung. Apparently, the manufacturing process has been matured over the years. Gaming performance here on the Galaxy A57, even with everything set to max in Genshin Impact. It might sound odd to say on a mid-range phone, but it's indeed buttery smooth. And we definitely cannot skip the Honor as well. Same as before, we're going to set everything to max. So if you're not planning to work on some heavy-duty video editing on your phone, you'll be getting really close to flagship-like gaming experience and responsive day-to-day interaction with the phone. So if you're really concerned about getting the most performance per dollar, the Xiaomi 17T could be your choice, though it's using a plastic frame and a plastic back. It's like comparing a 2-year-old flagship to a modern, standard mid-range phone. Now, heat control is pretty great across the board. As you can see here on the graph, all of them delivered stable performance across the hour, across 4 and 2 the benchmark runs. And to wrap the whole package up, both Honor and Xiaomi decided to give their entire AI suite to their mid-range phone. It's basically every imaginable AI feature as we've got on their flagships. Now the Galaxy, they're definitely preserving some features exclusive to the S series. And last but once again not least, Nothing's giving everything they had on the Nothing Phone 4a Pro as well. Do let me know in the comment section below if you would want an AI comparison for mid-range phones in 2026. So in short, photo editing tools, we have cleanup and pedestrians removal added through software update on the Nothing recently. Meanwhile, we're basically looking at the exact same set of photo editing tools as on their flagship on the Honor and the Xiaomi. Now the Galaxy, we're having Remaster and Object Eraser here. It's missing some generative AI features, but in my opinion, having the Object Eraser feature here is already good enough. Here we have a quick comparison as well. For this particular one, I'll be removing the passersby. In this case, it would be me myself. Now, all of them did remove me from the frame and generated the metal gate behind me. As you can see here, the Object Eraser on the Galaxy A57, that's absolutely not as great as what I've found on the S26. On the contrary, the Honor and the Xiaomi is generating a really compelling image here. The photo generated by the Nothing's not bad either. This time around, I'll be removing me once again, which happened to be petting the deer. Just take a look at the original photo. The Galaxy this time around is actually doing a pretty great job. Not as flawless as on the Galaxy S26, but is still better than the Honor, the Nothing and the Xiaomi here. It's not a must to stick with the original photo editor, however. We've got Google Gemini on board on each of them per se. It works flawlessly on the Honor 600 and the Xiaomi 17T as well, as we're talking about the global version here. Google Photos as well, and all the AI features inside. In some situations, it works even better than the built-in one when it comes to mid-range phones like these. It can always be the ultimate backup, and as an Android phone, you may consider that as built-in as well. All in all, a compact phone with remarkably thin bezels across the 4 sides and a 7000 mAh battery. Not the absolute best, but decent camera. The Honor 600 is delivering just that. A compact device with a fantastic camera setup and outstanding performance in its price range, and a huge battery, a 6500 mAh cell to be exact. The Xiaomi 17T is absolutely delivering fantastic value for money. Though when it comes to build quality, it feels great in hand, though it's the only one here using a plastic frame and a plastic back. Now, if you're leaning more towards having the big screen, flagship-like experience, and you're also putting build quality and the choice of material to almost like the top of your list, the Galaxy A57 truly feels and looks like a flagship phone. The camera's decent, overall usability is great, and it features a 5000 mAh battery. And finally, the Nothing's delivering a great camera system comparable to that on the Xiaomi 17T. A truly unique design and excellent build quality. It also comes with a massive display. Raw performance is not the best, especially if you're comparing it to the Xiaomi 17T, and is powered by a 5080 mAh battery. It's a truly unique and solid one if you can find a good deal for it. Right, so that's pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Like if you did, and don't forget to subscribe. See you all next time.